Brother convinced my parents I was mentally ill to get power of attorney. The competency hearing revealed who really needed help. Everything started falling apart when I moved back home after college to help my aging parents with their daily needs around the house. My brother had been living there for 3 years already, supposedly taking care of them, but I noticed things weren't quite right when I arrived. The house was messier than usual, bills were piling up on the kitchen counter, and my parents seemed more confused and withdrawn than when I last visited 6 months earlier. My brother seemed irritated by my presence from day one, constantly making snide comments about how I was interfering with their routine. He would roll his eyes whenever I suggested improvements to their living situation or questioned why certain things weren't being handled properly. The tension between us grew thicker each day, and I could feel my parents getting caught in the middle of our disagreements. I started noticing strange patterns in how my brother interacted with our parents, especially when it came to their finances and medical appointments. He would insist on handling everything himself and became defensive whenever I offered to help with doctor visits or paying bills. When I asked direct questions about their financial situation or health status, he would change the subject or accuse me of being paranoid and controlling. The situation escalated when I discovered that my brother had been accessing their bank accounts without proper authorization and had been making questionable purchases. I found receipts for expensive electronics and luxury items that definitely weren't for our parents' benefit. When I confronted him about these discoveries, he became extremely agitated and accused me of being delusional and making up stories. That's when things took a dark turn that I never saw coming. My brother started telling our parents that I was having mental health issues and that my behavior was becoming increasingly erratic and concerning. He would point to my questions about finances as evidence of paranoid thinking, and he twisted my genuine concerns about their well-being into signs of obsessive behavior. My parents, who were already struggling with some cognitive decline, began to believe his version of events. They started looking at me differently, with worry and fear in their eyes instead of the warmth and trust I was used to. My brother had positioned himself as their protector, shielding them from their supposedly unstable son who was causing them stress and anxiety. The manipulation became more sophisticated as weeks passed. My brother would have private conversations with our parents, filling their heads with concerns about my mental state and suggesting that I might be dangerous to myself or others. He painted a picture of me as someone who had lost touch with reality and couldn't be trusted with important decisions or responsibilities. I felt completely isolated and confused, as my own family turned against me based on these fabricated concerns. Every attempt I made to defend myself or explain my actual concerns was twisted into further evidence of my supposed mental instability. My brother had created a perfect trap where any resistance I showed only seemed to confirm his narrative about my condition. The breaking point came when I discovered that my brother had been secretly recording our conversations and taking photos of me during what he claimed were my emotional outbursts. He had been building a case against me, documenting every moment of frustration or anger as evidence of my deteriorating mental health. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. What made it even worse was realizing that my parents genuinely believed they were protecting me by going along with his plan. They thought they were helping their sick son by allowing his more stable brother to take control of important family matters. Their love for me had been weaponized against me in the most heartbreaking way possible. My brother then took the ultimate step by convincing our parents to grant him power of attorney over their affairs. He argued that they needed someone mentally stable to help them make important decisions, and that I was too unwell to be trusted with such responsibilities. He painted this as a temporary measure until I could get the help I supposedly needed. The paperwork was signed before I even knew what was happening. My brother had orchestrated everything carefully, timing the signing for when I was out of the house running errands. When I returned and discovered what had occurred, my shock and anger were immediately labeled as further proof of my mental instability. I realized I was trapped in a nightmare scenario where my own family had been turned against me through calculated manipulation and lies. Every emotional response I had to this betrayal was used as ammunition to support the false narrative about my mental health. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of gaslighting and deception. The situation became even more surreal when my brother started making medical appointments for me without my consent, claiming that our parents were worried about my well-being. He had positioned himself as the responsible family member who was trying to get help for his troubled brother, while I was cast as the unstable person who couldn't see his own problems. I knew I had to find a way to prove my mental competency and expose what was really happening, but every avenue seemed blocked by my brother's carefully constructed web of lies. He had been several steps ahead of me throughout this entire process, anticipating my reactions and using them to strengthen his position with our parents. The weight of being betrayed by my own family while simultaneously being painted as the problem was crushing. I spent sleepless nights questioning my own sanity, wondering if maybe there was some truth to what they were saying about me. The psychological warfare was incredibly effective, and I found myself doubting my own perceptions and memories. But then something unexpected happened that changed everything. During one of the medical appointments my brother had scheduled, the doctor started asking me detailed questions about my family situation and living arrangements. Something in my responses triggered her professional instincts, and she began probing deeper into the dynamics at home. The doctor's questions revealed inconsistencies in my brother's story that she found concerning. She noticed that my descriptions of events were coherent and logical, while the supposed evidence of my mental illness seemed circumstantial at best. Her professional training helped her recognize signs of manipulation and family abuse that I hadn't even fully understood myself. This led to a formal competency evaluation being ordered by the court after the doctor filed a report expressing concerns about potential elder abuse and manipulation. The evaluation would determine whether I was actually mentally incompetent or if something else was happening in our family dynamic that needed investigation. The competency hearing became the arena where the truth would finally have a chance to emerge. My brother was confident that his months of careful documentation and manipulation would easily convince the court that I was mentally unstable and that he was the responsible party looking out for everyone's best interests. What my brother didn't anticipate was how thoroughly the court-appointed evaluators would investigate our family situation. They didn't just look at his carefully curated evidence against me. They examined the broader context of our family dynamics and financial situation. The picture that emerged was very different from the one he had been painting. The financial records revealed the unauthorized transactions I had discovered, along with a pattern of financial exploitation that had been going on for much longer than I had realized. The evaluators found evidence of forged signatures, suspicious transfers, and a systematic draining of our parents' accounts that coincided with my brother's increased involvement in their affairs. Even more damaging to his case was the discovery of his online activity, which revealed a disturbing pattern of researching how to manipulate elderly people and gain control over their finances. The evaluators found search histories about gaslighting techniques, legal ways to obtain power of attorney, and methods for making family members appear mentally unstable. The competency hearing revealed that my brother had been the one exhibiting concerning behavior all along. The court-appointed psychologist found clear evidence of antisocial personality traits, including a lack of empathy, manipulative behavior, and a willingness to exploit vulnerable family members for personal gain. The most shocking revelation came when the investigators discovered that my brother had been secretly medicating our parents with over-the-counter sleep aids to keep them more docile and compliant. This explained their increased confusion and withdrawal that I had noticed when I first moved back home. He had been literally drugging them to make his manipulation easier. The evidence presented at the hearing painted a picture of a calculated predator who had been systematically exploiting our elderly parents, while simultaneously destroying my reputation to eliminate any potential interference. The supposed mental health crisis he had fabricated about me was actually a projection of his own psychological problems. My parents were horrified when they learned the truth about what had been happening. The cognitive fog that had been clouding their judgment lifted once they stopped being secretly medicated, and they began to see clearly how they had been manipulated and deceived by their own son. Their guilt and shame over what they had been convinced to do was heartbreaking to witness. The court immediately revoked the power of attorney that had been granted to my brother and ordered him to make full restitution for all the money he had stolen from our parents. He was also required to undergo a psychiatric evaluation and was prohibited from having any unsupervised contact with our parents pending the outcome of criminal charges. The aftermath of the hearing was emotionally devastating for our entire family. My parents struggled with the realization that they had been victimized by their own son and had unknowingly participated in his abuse of me. The trust that had been shattered would take a long time to rebuild if it could ever be fully restored. My brother's reaction to being exposed was perhaps the most telling aspect of the entire situation. Instead of showing remorse or attempting to make amends, He became enraged and vindictive, threatening to destroy our family completely if he faced any consequences for his actions. His mask had finally slipped completely, revealing the person he had always been underneath. The criminal investigation that followed uncovered even more evidence of his fraudulent activities and psychological manipulation. Law enforcement found detailed notes he had kept about his manipulation strategies and plans for gaining complete control over our parents' assets. The premeditation involved was staggering and deeply disturbing. What struck me most profoundly was how close his plan had come to succeeding completely. If that one doctor hadn't recognized the signs of what was really happening, I might have been institutionalized or legally declared incompetent while he continued exploiting our parents. The system designed to protect vulnerable people had nearly been weaponized against us. The healing process for my family has been long and difficult. My parents have had to come to terms with the fact that they were victimized by someone they trusted completely, and that their other son nearly became a victim of their unwitting participation in his scheme. The psychological scars run deep for all of us. I've learned that family loyalty can be a dangerous thing when it's exploited by someone without conscience or empathy. The assumption that family members have each other's best interests at heart created the perfect environment for my brother's manipulation to flourish unchecked for so long. The experience has fundamentally changed how I view relationships and trust. I now understand that some people are capable of incredible deception and manipulation, even toward those closest to them. The warning signs I missed early on seem obvious in retrospect, but they were skillfully hidden beneath a facade of concern and responsibility. My brother is currently serving time for elder abuse, fraud, and various other charges related to his scheme. The sentence was longer than I expected, but it feels appropriate given the calculated nature of his crimes and the psychological damage he inflicted on our family. He has shown no remorse and continues to maintain that he was trying to help everyone. The most important lesson I've learned is that truth has a way of emerging eventually, even when it's buried under layers of manipulation and deception. The competency hearing that was supposed to prove my mental illness instead revealed the real predator in our family and saved my parents from continued exploitation. My relationship with my parents has slowly been rebuilding, though it will never be quite the same as it was before. They carry guilt about their role in what happened, despite being victims themselves. We're all working through the trauma together, taking it one day at a time and trying to create new trust based on honesty and transparency. The whole experience has given me a deeper appreciation for the professionals who work in elder care and family services. The doctor who recognized what was happening and the court evaluators who uncovered the truth literally saved our family from complete destruction. Their expertise and dedication made all the difference in our case. I still think about how different things might have been if I had recognized the manipulation earlier, or if I had been more assertive in challenging my brother's narrative. But I also realized that he had been planning and executing this scheme for years, and I was dealing with a level of calculated deception that most people never encounter. The financial damage to my parents' estate was significant, but the money was less important than stopping the ongoing abuse and manipulation. They're living more comfortably now and have regained their dignity and autonomy, which is worth more than any amount of money that was stolen from them. Looking back, I can see that my brother had been exhibiting concerning behavior for years, but it was subtle and easy to dismiss as personality quirks or stress-related issues. The escalation happened gradually, making it harder to recognize the pattern until it reached a crisis point that forced outside intervention. The entire experience has taught me the importance of trusting my instincts when something feels wrong, even when others are trying to convince me otherwise. The gaslighting was so effective that I began questioning my own sanity, but my underlying sense that something was wrong was correct all along. My parents and I have created new safeguards and systems to prevent anything like this from happening again. We have regular check-ins with medical professionals, transparent financial arrangements, and multiple people involved in important decisions. The innocence and blind trust are gone, replaced by careful vigilance and verification. The competency hearing that was supposed to be my downfall instead became the moment when truth finally had its day in court. Justice wasn't just served. It was delivered with a clarity that exposed every lie and manipulation that had been carefully constructed over months of calculated deception. Today, my parents are safer, my brother is facing the consequences of his actions, and I've been cleared of all the false accusations that nearly destroyed my life. The experience was traumatic, but it also revealed the strength and resilience that my parents and I didn't know we possessed. The story serves as a reminder that family predators often hide in plain sight, using love and trust as weapons against their victims. But it also shows that truth and justice can prevail, even when the odds seem insurmountable and the manipulation appears perfect.